Hello, everybody. Meteorologist Brian Good here. Thanks for checking out the weather blog on wave3.com. We're not going to discuss meteorology today. Instead, it's going to be geology. I'm going to talk about the sinkholes that have made headlines here lately, especially the one at the National Corvette Museum that made headlines. You know what? That wasn't the first time that Bowling Green made news when it came to sinkholes. In 2002, I actually worked at a TV station here in town at that time in Bowling Green, and I remember this. It was rush hour. I think there was one individual at a stop sign on the side there, and his vehicle did go under. No one was hurt, thank goodness, but it was a rather large sinkhole that took place nearly about the same amount of time in February of that season. Now, thanks to University of Kentucky for these graphics, because I want to show a little bit about how sinkholes form. First off, here's the top layer of the ground, and we got the soil and the dirt here, and then we have a lot of limestone and bedrock that's underneath all of our dirt and clay. But limestone, because of the way the land is set up, we call it a karst environment, and karst describes the texture of land, basically, where you get groundwater that can eventually open up into caves. We see that, of course. We have the largest one on Earth. That would be Mammoth Cave. So we have a lot of caves in Kentucky. And when these openings develop, there can be little cracks that can form. Sometimes it's stress because of the geological movement of the Earth, and sometimes it's temperature that can do it. And in most cases, it can be very heavy rainfall or even snow events that can really cause some of these openings to become a little more dramatic. When that happens, the dirt will fall through the crack. And in caves, there's water, and that water will take that dirt and move it out, so it never gets replaced. So eventually, once you start taking dirt away from somewhere, it's going to have to give in, and that will take place on the top part of it, and the whole thing just kind of caves in on itself. But here's the difference, though, with sinkholes in Kentucky versus, say, Florida. In Kentucky, we have about 25 feet of clay and dirt that sits on top of our stable bedrock that we have. In Florida, they have sand and clay all the way down to their groundwater table, which is pretty far down to the south and deep as well. So our sinkholes are pretty limited. They only have a certain amount of space that can actually fall. So in most cases, it's only just a few feet, sometimes a few inches. Sometimes it could be a little more dramatic like what we've seen in Bowling Green. Nothing like Florida, though. You may remember last year, one took place at a house. And unfortunately, it swallowed up the individual that was inside the house. So in Florida, they're much more dramatic. But in Kentucky, they overall are not very dramatic, and they usually don't happen in many common areas where businesses are built. In most areas, businesses know where they are located at, so they don't build on them. It's mostly farms and country land that really sees a lot of these sinkholes. And again, they're pretty dramatic, but they do happen all over the entire region for the most part. But unfortunately, if there is one near a business like the National Corvette Museum, you saw what happened, and it made headlines. So let's look at the history of how they form. Now, how many have been reported? Well, everywhere you see, first off, a county highlighted in Kentucky here that is in gray, that means your chance for a sinkhole is pretty much zero. It's never been mapped before. If you are in yellow, you have the risk for a sinkhole to develop. You've had a reported sinkhole at some point in time, in modern time. And if you have a lot of the red dots, you see the concentration. And it's mainly along the Mammoth Cave area, heading through Lost Cave, Horse Cave, all the way down to the south and to areas of the Peninsula region of Kentucky. That is where the main concentration has been of sinkholes that have been taking place across the state itself. Now, the University, Western Kentucky University, did a great study here about areas most likely to see a sinkhole. And areas in red were at a higher risk for that based on the type of environment and karst environment they have in Kentucky. That would be around the Fort Knox area, Radcliffe, all the way down 65, heading through Upton, Bonneville, heading down to Bowling Green, Edmonson County, and then off to the west. This is the area of highest risk. Doesn't mean you're going to have one. It's just greater than a 10% chance, which is not a very high chance that you could see a sinkhole. And again, some of these are pretty minor sinkholes that happen. Another little concentration does develop in the Lexington area, thanks to the Bluegrass area. That area does have a lot of sinkholes and springs that run through that as well. And then another concentration areas of Lake Cumberland. So it's not the entire region, but it is certainly concentrated in more spots than in others. And across Indiana, there is actually some karst environment across southern Indiana. We've noticed a definite pattern from Floyd County over through the Knobs, Washington County, all the way up into areas near Bloomington, and then back to the south. This is a zone here where we've had some concentration of the potential here for some sinkholes to take place, and to a lesser degree here off to the east. So they're not widespread. They don't happen all the time, but that chance is certainly there for a sinkhole to develop. So I hope that explains a little bit about it. Nothing to be alarmed about or concerned about. Most of these are pretty minor, and hopefully businesses can always keep an alert of where to build so they can avoid the highest risk areas in the future. Thanks for checking out the blog.